Hey everyone, I'm Gray, and currently I am a self-taught artist hoping to draw professionally one day. I've been on Instagram since the start of 2022, and I've relatively treated my posts pretty casually and didn't really invest a lot of my time and effort towards making it grow. But in some of my attempts to make it grow, I realized that I was having a hard time figuring out how to post even once a week. The most I could do was once a month, and maybe as artists, you guys, it's kind of normal because, art takes time. Completing artwork takes time, and especially since I realized I'm a slow working artist, I'm one of those artists that take time to make every stroke and line the way I want it to. It's not that I could not post any art at all on my social platforms, but I cared a lot about maintaining a certain level of quality, or at least I really wanted my feed to stay aesthetically pleasing. Not just for my personal enjoyment. I believe that in order to maintain and attract more people, I think it's important to have a certain unified vibe to your content as a whole, because it's easier for the audience to tell what kind of artist you are and see that you're consistent and trustable in maintaining an art style that they like to see. Taking that into account, I was stuck on how I could post more frequently and maintain high quality content at the same time, or at least visually pleasing content at the same time. But then I thought of an idea, and that is to create an OC. I know you guys might think this is a no-brainer. You don't have an OC. And I don't know if you guys can hear the rain in the back. It's been raining in California for the past month. Not every day, but it's quite surprising. If you guys can hear it, it's a pretty nice ASMR quality to my video. Yeah, so I finally came up with the idea of making an OC that is dedicated to help me post more frequently. And I thought that this concept would work because I could reuse this character in multiple illustrations that could explore different parts of that OC's world, like her background, parts of her world, and her story. And I think viewers would appreciate this continuous concept in my posts. So anyway, I hope that this video gives you something at least to listen to. I'd like to also share the potential story and elements and aspects about my character. And last but not least, I'd also like to share some impactful insight on character design that I learned from a professional character concept artist and now art director. So of course, when I started to create this character, I was very self-indulgent. I went full force with drawing the character elements that I wanted. I thought it would also be pretty cool to have this character have the concept of a knight about her, especially because my Instagram name does have knight in it. I believe that, especially in this part of my art journey, it's important to invest time in drawing what you like and exploring those elements and subjects that you like to draw. It keeps you motivated to keep working on improving your art. Recently, I've also took this kind of art course, if I should say, by Tim McBurney. He is an illustrator, concept artist, and comic artist. He's especially proficient in doing line drawings. And one of the things that he said was to create a list of the things that you like to draw. Maybe it can be the top 10 things, the top 20 things. And I thought that was a great idea because it recenters me to understand exactly what interests me and helps me pinpoint parts of the areas of this character that I want to further expound upon in the future or explore. So I highly suggest that you create a list for yourself as well. As you can probably tell more and more as you get to the end of this video, I'm especially interested in line drawings. I love my details and the idea of maintaining those details while having a graphic read on the silhouette. Somehow the idea of delicate white clothing like ruffles, lace, mixing in with armor is very interesting in a way to me, and maybe because I grew up reading manga, watching anime, and later reading webtoons, getting really good at line art is an endeavor of mine. I loved action, but I also really loved looking at really pretty, gorgeously drawn webtoons that are mostly found in more of the romance genre of webtoons or even manga. I would love to see those like action and beautiful drawings more compiled together in my drawings. As for the story and personality of this OC, I realized, hold on, I didn't say her name for now. I want to call her Rain. Something about that name hopefully creates a picture for you and I about the general vibe of this character. So for now, the basic story of Rain is that in her world, which is very much like our modern world, her world has been infested with a new type of epidemic. The source of this epidemic is not particularly due to the physical things of this world, but this disease is caused by these supernatural creatures called orcs. I'm slightly interested in the lore made by Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. I hope I'm saying it right, but I've done some research in the past about his lore and I'm pretty interested in incorporating it into the story behind this character. So, in other words, the elves have left Rain's world, and now it was only known that humans existed in her world, or in other words, the Middle Earth. So the orcs, which are basically known as evil, have also disappeared from Middle Earth, but in reality, they actually went into hiding. One day, the orcs decided to take over Middle Earth and unleashed this new kind of pandemic all over the world. During the time Rain was a young woman, this plan of theirs was still trying to bud. So, more specifically, the disease that would happen was humans that were very mentally unstable would fall victim to becoming a zombie-like monster. So Rain's mother happened to be one of the first victims of this disease. And I was thinking Rain would also start to be infected by this disease because of her situation with her mother and her own mental situation. But luckily, an elf would visit her and give her these powers to combat this new rising epidemic, and in the future, the orcs. So you can imagine that Rain is more and more going into the deep end of being very involved in this supernatural conflict. The armor that you see on her body and the quote-unquote costume she's wearing, the star symbol on her head and the fiery sword she has on her, all kind of represent the power she inherited from the elves. I didn't really have much thought in creating her particular costume because I went into this just very self-indulgent and carefree, but I believe a big part of my influence is probably shows like Sailor Moon. I loved how the characters in Sailor Moon maintained a sense of elegance and I guess you can say beauty. Their fighting attire, if I must say. I didn't want to create a costume that was very form-fitting like American superheroes. So Rain's attire is tied to her own personality. In short, she has developed a somewhat toxic relationship with beauty and perfectionism because when she saw her mother struggling and mentally unstable, she saw the quote-unquote ugliness of that and wanted to be something else and didn't want to show that kind of unstable and ugly weakness, for a lack of better words. I've watched a few documentaries or YouTube videos about how there are some people who basically gave up on life or just became very lonely and secluded, and in that process they started to neglect the cleanliness of their homes, maybe stacking up tons of toilet paper, stacking up tons of trash around the house, leaving the dishes, leaving the food to rot. So I imagine that Rain grew up living around that and trying to live with her mother through that after her mother's husband abandoned her. Honestly, I don't really have a lot of intention to fully delve into the story because I wanted to, for now, keep Rain as a more symbolic character, a more symbolic or conceptual character. I wanted her to kind of represent how life could be and is, because I think there's just some things about life and reality that is harder to put into words. And I wanted to kind of explore that a little through this OC, but also provide a theme surrounding hope and inspire hope and strength to my audience. Speaking of hope, I hope that I did not go into a random rabbit hole too much and bore you guys. Let me talk about the technical process behind this character concept sheet and some of the really cool tips that I've learned from one particular professional artist. As you might have seen from the beginning of this video, I was doing a rough draft of my character, and I actually thought that draft would be my final line draft of my OC. And boy was I wrong. Actually, prior to that, I already made a rough line and color draft, if I should say, of my character. So basically this was my second draft. And actually, I do not regret doing more and more drafts. I don't regret not sticking to my first draft because, as you can see later, I was able to expound upon even more accurate detail and good design. When I was making this second draft, I thought I could skip my preparations on making the anatomy accurate. I thought I could just skip the anatomy. I was wrong because I got more and more unsure throughout this process, if this actually should be the final look of my character, because honestly it looked very rough to me and it didn't achieve the professional and clean look that I wanted. So I finally gave in and began to draw the anatomy of my OC in 4 figures. I'm really grateful that I did that. I even honestly wish I did even more planning because I didn't really work on my value planning on this piece. I could say that this is my first time doing such a through character turnaround and character concept sheet. So I'm 100% sure that I made some mistakes that I regret. And it's painful to think about because I probably spent 50 or 40 plus hours on this over the span of maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, that thought is painful and definitely not the ideal process I want to go through if I do want to make more frequent posts on Instagram. But I think this is a great learning experience on finding out what I like and what I don't like. So I went through the anatomy and finally started the final line art with a default brush in Clip Studio Paint. Over the past few years that I've been learning art myself, at least overall, I worried a lot about which brush to use because, at least to some extent, I knew that some brushes created an effect, a particular effect that seems ideal for some cases but not all cases, and I probably just have to accept that fact that maybe not one brush is suited for all occasions, and it's important to thoroughly understand the aspects of one brush and use it to its full capacity for particular occasions. In other words, if I had to give advice to my beginner artist self, I would say not to spend too much time worrying about which brush to use, but just be loose and explore maybe just up to 10 different kinds of brushes as opposed to 50, because when you're doing that, you're giving time for yourself to really familiarize yourself with these brushes to the point that you can use each one better to its full potential. I went on a tangent. Anyway, so I did the final line art and I found out that I can focus on the more intricate designs even more since I already got anatomy and the basic silhouette out of the way. So let me finally introduce the professional artist that I was taking advice from that I mentioned earlier in this video. I won't lie, I bought some courses from Colosso, not just 1 or 2, because man, being someone who's so influenced by Eastern art, it was awesome to find a site that provides courses with English translation from these awesome Eastern artists. And one of them that I've bought a course from is called Raisun or Risun. If I remember correctly, she is a concept artist that worked on character designs as well as weapon design for games, including Seven Knights and Grand Saga. Now I believe that she is an art director, at least by the time she created those videos for her course. And I want to share some really cool, impactful advice from her. One thing that she shared was the basic design principles that you should incorporate into your character concept design, which is flow, balance, and simplification. Maybe this is very basic information that you guys already know, but I didn't know this, and it was really helpful to know how these 3 things can really maintain a certain quality to your character design. For example, when you look at an object, it becomes more visually interesting if there's a kind of flow and pause to it. Like there is an area of rest that your eyes can rest, and there's an area of detail that your eyes can comfortably explore. She also introduced the idea of proportions and ratios. So for this character, for Rain, I wanted her to feel elegant but kind of cute, but mostly elegant. So Rie-san's idea of ratios and proportions really helped to bring out that quality, I think. For example, some people can be 8 heads tall, some people are 7 heads tall, some people even 9 heads tall. And at least in her examples, people that are around 9 heads or 8 heads tall will appear more elegant as opposed to someone who's 5 heads or 7 heads tall. Just like how children's proportions or a teenager's proportions are, the lower the quantity of heads, the more cuter they seem. So I made Rain about 8 heads tall, and I don't know if you guys want to see the large amount of references I used in creating this character, but I think just like how this professional artist advised, it's really good to have a bunch of references and have a collection of art and photos that you really like, and just choose the elements you like from each one to create the style that you want. And that's exactly what I tried to do in this character. It overall is a really good process. I still think there are some elements that I want to rework on for it to really be my style. And she said something really interesting, and that it just opened another world of understanding of how I should approach my artwork if I do want to be a freelancing illustrator, for example, in the future. And that is, when you make your artwork, you gotta kind of associate it directly with how much money you're willing to pay for it, or how much money a customer would want to pay for it. For instance, if you only created a character with plain hair, a plain white t-shirt with white pants, and some flip-flops, how much do you think the customer would pay for that drawing? As opposed to you design the character proportions, the character's expressions, the costume, all in a very unique way and beautiful way. I bet 99.999% that the customer will see a greater value into that drawing and pay even more for that. So I think this is something that's really good to chew on, and what I really tried to incorporate into this character concept sheet. I went as hard as I could, as hard as I mentally could handle, on really trying to design her armor, design the white part of her costume in a very unique and intriguing way. And if I was a customer who liked my style, I'ma buy it. No, I mean, I'll be more likely to buy it for a higher price. Rie-san also pointed out that it's important to learn the universal taste. And what I mean by that is it's important to learn what the general audience likes to see, even if you have a more unique taste. And I kept that in mind, that I'm guessing the trend right now is more Y2K and more maximalist styles. So even though my OC's costumes can be seen as unique to me, I think it still fits somewhat into the current trends right now. And this is just for me to keep up with the trends and make my art more marketable, since I do want to monetize my art in the future, hopefully. I don't know. Yeah, so those are some cool tips that I learned from Rie-san. I could say more, but I don't want to talk too long. And maybe I can talk about some more interesting tips from her and other artists that I'm learning from in another video. Anyway, that's pretty much kind of wanted to say. The main takeaway I have from this is planning is so important. From the anatomy to designing the values, the colors, the proportions, the style that you want to go for, what kind of project that you want to fit into. Planning is so important because it just divides your goals into steps and manageable layers. I've heard from Tim McBurney, which is the other artist I mentioned, and he emphasized planning. Even your portraits can use planning, and even down to a simple face, you can do really interesting things with the design, with the colors, with the values. I think it's just more smart and more advisable, as I've heard from professional artists, to break it down into manageable chunks so you don't get overwhelmed. And trust me, I've done enough failed drawings to really start to appreciate the planning process, and I believe that some parts of this character concept sheet didn't reach my desired threshold because I didn't take time to plan more, and just maybe also because I didn't feel like I had a lot of time and I just wanted to post as soon as possible or get it over with as soon as possible, because I spent like so many hours on this and I felt like I needed to move on. Anyway, the art style that you see in this video, I hope you guys don't see it as my final art style, if I should say. I'm still looking to improve, still looking to make it even better, because I do see the flaws, like the values. Man, I wish I planned the values more. And how the lighting is placed, I wish I made it more graphic and clear so it's more impactful to the audience. I think maybe I have to get rid of my attachment to more dull grayish colors, or at least add more saturated colors. So I hope by the next time I make another video, you can see even more improvement and a better execution on the final result. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I wish everyone the best in whatever journey you're making. If you do want to see more from me, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys next time, and happy drawing, everyone. Bye!